Hey guys, this is Sports with Dylan. Another trade has arrived in the NHL. Actually, it has been more than just one. But the biggest one being that Patrick Kane has been traded to a team with no cap space and yet somehow managed to make it work. The New York Rangers. When the Rangers traded for Vladimir Tarasenko just about a week ago, then I thought this trade was not going to happen. But just before that, I thought this trade was certainty. It makes so much sense. Artemi Panarin, the Rangers' star forward, used to play on the Blackhawks with Patrick Kane. They had great chemistry, they shared a line together, and they were amazing. It was a great duo to watch. So it makes so much sense to reunite this duo on a team that is contending again. Also, Patrick Kane is from Buffalo, New York, which isn't that far away from New York City. It's closer than Chicago is, and certainly closer than some of the other destinations that were considered, including Edmonton and Vegas. And you can see why he would obviously want to pick the New York Rangers out of those. But after the Rangers traded for Tarasenko, it felt like the need was no longer there. Why would they need another star forward when they have Tarasenko, they have Zibanejad, and they have Panarin? They have plenty of star forwards, and they have more players developing, such as Capo Caco and Alex Lafreniere, who somehow wasn't involved in this deal. I'll get more into that later. But it doesn't feel like the Rangers needed it. And they had no cap space. They're already over the cap. And yet somehow, I have no idea exactly what happened, but somehow the Rangers managed to make this trade work. So I have to applaud that for them, because they now have one of the best forward groups in the league, if not the very best forward group in the league. I would argue this group is better than Boston's. I would argue it's better than Toronto's. I'd argue it's better than Edmonton's. I'd argue it's better than Colorado's. I think it is the very best forward group in the league right now, with so many star players, including Tarasenko and Kane, who both have experience with winning Stanley Cups, which is something you really want in a locker room like that. So this team should go really far this year. In fact, I think they could win the Stanley Cup. Now, it's not going to be an easy race, because, as I mentioned earlier, Boston is the best team in the league right now. No argument against it. They are absolutely on fire. They have so many star players. It's unquestionable. This team is the best. So they're going to have some trouble getting past Boston. But I think with this experienced forward group, they could actually make it work. But they also have to get past Carolina, who has been really good this year. Tampa Bay, who always makes a run at the Stanley Cup. And Toronto, who has been building up their team quite a bit as well, as long as they can make it past the first round. Patrick Kane, as well as Cooper Zek, were traded to the New York Rangers in exchange for Andy Welinski, a conditional second-round pick in 2024, and a fourth-round pick, as well as the Coyotes being involved, with them giving up Ville Sejarvi in exchange of getting a third-round pick and retaining 25% of the cap hit on Patrick Kane. The Blackhawks retained 50%, which is why the Rangers were able to make this deal work, because they only have to pay 25% of Patrick Kane's salary. If you ask me, on first glance, this looks fine. This looks like a pretty good deal for all sides. The Blackhawks get a solid deal. And by the way, the second-round pick can be a first-round pick if the Rangers make the Stanley Cup Finals. So, it seems like a pretty darn good deal. Blackhawks get some picks and trade away Patrick Kane. But then when you look into how much players have been going for lately, like Tanner Jeannot got a first-round pick. Matthias Ekholm, who we'll talk about a bit more later, got a first-round pick. Jake McCabe, Patrick Kane's former teammate, got a first-round pick. So I think Patrick Kane definitely deserved to get a first-round pick in this case, especially given that all that cap space was retained. It doesn't make sense that he wasn't paid more. Now, if the market hadn't inflated so much, then I could see this as a solid deal. Patrick Kane is a pending free agent, and the Rangers better win the Stanley Cup this year with these guys, because there's no way they're re-signing Vladimir Tarasenko and Patrick Kane at this point in time. So, they need to win it all this year, and they are going all in. But the fact that they managed to get Patrick Kane for only a conditional second-round pick is quite surprising, if you ask me, when you look at all of what players have been going for no more. At least Cap was retained in this case. I mean, going back to Tanner Jeannot, I freaked out about that in my last video, which I'll leave a link to in the description. It doesn't make sense that you're paying a guy that much, plus throwing in a former first-round pick as a defenseman. Why are they paying that much? Meanwhile, Patrick Kane is sitting here only getting a second-round pick. It does not make sense to me. As I mentioned earlier, Matthias Ekholm was also traded today from the Nashville Predators to the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for Tyson Barrie, Reed Schaefer, who was the Oilers' 2022 first-round pick, and a 2023 first-round pick. That seems like quite a lot, if you ask me, for Matthias Ekholm. Again, Patrick Kane got a second-rounder. Meanwhile, the Oilers are sitting here trading away their best defenseman, if you ask me. A solid prospect who I quite liked, and a first-round pick for a defenseman who cannot score a goal for the life of him. Now, he is quite a defensive defenseman, which the Oilers definitely need. They have had their fair share of defensive struggles this year. To clear up some cap to get Matthias Ekholm, the Oilers traded away Jesse Puljujarvi today, which was a long time coming. Puljujarvi has not worked in the Oilers system. He's being paid $3 million, which is way too much for a guy who cannot score a goal for the life of him. It's just depressing to watch. You can tell everyone is trying their hardest to get Puljujarvi to work. They've put him on lines with McDavid. They put him on lines with Draisaitl. They've put him on lines with Nugent Hopkins. And yet nothing has seemed to work to activate Puljujarvi. So he just has to go. He needs a change of scenery. And he used to play with Sebastian Aho from the Hurricanes. So it makes sense. In exchange, the Oilers got a Finnish prospect of whose name I cannot remember and will probably never make the Oilers roster. But they just shed $3 million in salary cap. So that is pretty good on their end. Kyle Dubas, the Maple Leafs general manager, has been crazy busy these past couple of days. First, the Maple Leafs trade for Ryan O'Reilly. And yesterday, they traded for Jake McCabe of the Chicago Blackhawks, as well as Sam Lafferty, in exchange for Pavel Gogolev, Joey Anderson, a 2025 first-round pick, and a 2026 second-round pick. I think the Maple Leafs could use a defenseman, and I think this was a solid deal. Although they didn't need a defenseman that much, I think Jake McCabe is an upgrade on what they have right now. I think he's going to improve that defense quite a bit. But I do think this was, once again, a bit much. Especially when his teammate, Patrick Kane, is only getting a second-round pick. But at the same time, it might be worth it to get a solid defenseman and to improve this team drastically. Today, Kyle Dubas had to trade away a couple of players, starting with Rasmus Sandin, their 2018 first-round pick. They traded him to the Capitals in exchange for Eric Gustafsson and a 2023 first-round pick. This is not that bad of a deal, although I wouldn't have traded away Rasmus Sandin if I were them. He's a young player who's still getting to his full potential, and I quite like the guy. I would have traded virtually every defenseman on the Leafs roster except for Morgan Riley instead of Rasmus Sandin. And, of course, Jake McCabe, because he's a solid defenseman and they just finished trading for him. But they decided to trade away Sandin, which is too bad for the Maple Leafs, but he will develop quite well in the Capital system, I'm sure. He might even be better than he ever would have been in Toronto, so he's probably better off. And the Capitals needed a defenseman, so they're quite better off, and the Maple Leafs got a first-round pick and shed a bit of cap. Next up, they trade away Pierre Engvall to the New York Islanders in exchange for a third-round pick. This trade I'm completely fine with. I think this was an equal deal on both sides. I don't think Engvall is going to make that big of an impact in New York. But I think they shed some cap on the Maple Leaf side. And they got a third-round pick. And the Islanders still got a solid player. They did this because then the Maple Leafs proceeded to trade for the Canucks defenseman Luke Schenn in exchange for a third-round pick. This trade starts to puzzle me a bit more, because they just finished trading away a very solid defenseman in Rasmus Sandin, and then going and picking up Luke Schenn. I think Luke Schenn is fine. I think he's a good defenseman, but I don't think he's better than Rasmus Sandin. And he's older. He doesn't have the potential that Sandin does to develop into a star defenseman. So this trade does not exactly make sense to me from the Leafs' perspective. The one thing is that Schenn is quite a bit cheaper, but even still, I would have not traded for Schenn and kept Sandin, even if you had to trade away Engvall. But at least they now get another solid defenseman, so the Leafs have completely reshaped their defense this past couple of days, and I think they've got to be done from the trade deadline standpoint. But I said that yesterday, and honestly, I said that after they trade for Ryan O'Reilly. So we shall see. Maybe the Leafs decide to do a bit more. So that is all of the trades we have had so far. We have now traded away most of the best players on the trade block. But this is the time of year when we start to get some surprising trades. Some trades that come completely out of the blue. So, we have a couple more days. I am positive I will be making at least one more video between now and then. Thanks for watching.